And then when it comes to on how to use money, like I absolutely talk to my kids about margins. I'm not fun, charge the right price.
No, it's the best.
It's the best, I know. I'm so unfun. We talk about not doing things for free.
Yes.
That their labor is worth something also, which I think especially raising daughters is a really important lesson. I think a lot of women are expected to dedicate their labor in various areas around churches, charity, volunteer business, even at work. We're expected to do overtime without complaining about it because that's just like sweet, and I'm not raising daughters like that.
Hi, I'm so excited for you to listen into this conversation with Nicole Walters. She's the best-selling author of Nothing Is Missing. She created a real sort of famous moment when she quit her job live in front of I think hundreds of thousands of people on the internet. And ever since then, she has a top podcast and she works with entrepreneurs to really tap into their power, their trust. She's incredible with systems. She is on her way to having her first baby from her own pregnancy, but she also has 3 incredible children that came into her life in a magical way. And in this episode, we talk about motherhood, about teaching your kids, about money, about living guilt and shame-free, and so many other things. She is delightful, she is powerful, she is funny. Enjoy this episode with Nicole Walters. Welcome to Plenty. I'm your host, Kate Northrup, and together we are going on a journey to help you have an incredible relationship with money, time, and energy, and to have abundance on every possible level. Every week, we're gonna dive in with experts and insights to help you unlock a life of plenty. Let's go fill our cups.
Please note that the opinions and perspectives of the guests on the Plenty podcast are not necessarily reflective of the opinions and perspectives of Kate Northrup or anyone who works within the Kate Northrup brand.
When I first got pregnant, I don't think a lot of people say it because there is a lot of pressure around moms for a lot of reasons. But specifically, a lot of the pressure around moms has to do with what we think of being moms and how we should show up as moms. And we're all supposed to just love it. And it's supposed to be the greatest thing ever. And it's supposed to be the best thing. Or we're in that like, it's awful, terrible, every day's a struggle, blah, blah, blah. Like either camp, And when I first got pregnant, I can honestly say this is something I hoped and prayed for, and I was so grateful. And this sweet baby's so wanted, and I'm just so happy about it. But I was so worried about like losing myself. Yeah. Because I think in a way that's a little different from becoming a mom in your mid-20s where you're still learning yourself. I already feel like a fully formed person.
Yeah.
And so the idea of like, will I have a career again? Like, will I work again? Like, will I have enough energy because I already have 3 babies? Who am I going to be? What does this mean about this new relationship that I'm just so overjoyed about? Like, I was just so worried about, and my therapist would say, you're fixating on the loss, and this is why I pay her the good money. But, I think what I'm excited about is getting to be an example of exactly what was given to me in the early stages of this pregnancy, which is you can be a mom and you can do it all, not all the time and not always well, but you can do it, And so I think that if there's anything I'm excited about is that this next chapter is hopefully going to live as an example, a legacy, for any women who may be wondering themselves, like, can you be 40 with an infant, a new, very hot husband, and, and kids of all these different ranges. Our family's just very complex. And I'm excited to focus on that and share as much of that journey as is appropriate. The good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was talking to a girlfriend last night and she is really in an interesting intersection of comedy, memoir writing, personal development. She's like, it's cool layers. Yeah. And she was talking about like looking for examples for mentorship of like, oh, well, they did it, so I can just follow the path.
Absolutely.
And I was talking about when my husband and I got married, we had this Akashic Records reading before we got married.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh.
Opened up our soul records, and the woman who married us, Deb Kern, was like, okay, so what's really important for you two to know is that what you are here to create has not been done before, so you need to be really careful.
No pressure.
For looking outside yourself for examples of how to do it. Wow. And I feel like with the family that you have created and are continuing to create, Obviously, you said you're getting inspiration and hope from older mothers and whatever, so we can always pull, but like weave together our own tapestry that really is an original.
For sure. And
like
I think that we all have an original, right? Our lived experiences are ours and ours alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, like I'll look at moms and I'm like, okay, well, she was able to get through Tuesday, you know, at carpool, we get it. Like, for instance, so
it is the hardest part of the day is
it's
the morning.
Hardest part of the day is the morning.
And then
it's just getting out the door and then
bedtime. Everything in between is
is
so easy.
And one of the things that I think about this experience that has been so amazing is that like it's so unifying. It's one of the places where, you know, when I meet other women, there's just an understanding that we have like a secret society type code that I just didn't even realize how grateful I am for that. You know, my little one, you know, I'm doing.
And she's 13.
13, yeah. Like, so we're now doing this early teen, because I did parenting out of order, right? So I have a 25-year-old, I did high school proms and all that stuff first, but I skipped over infancy because I adopted my 3 girls. So it's like, you know, we're doing certain things for the first time, but I've also already been a mom for a decade. So it's a very weird place.
Wild.
It's super weird. It's super weird. So it was our first like real middle school Halloween where like, you know, you start seeing cliquey things like, oh, we're all dressing together and we're trick-or-treating together, matching and all that. And so I was talking, oh yes. And just the dynamics that go along with it.
Brings up a lot of stuff.
But you get it. And it's just interesting because I could literally pluck a mom from anywhere in America and they're all able to say like, yeah, you know, you'll find that these 3 girls from the lunch table went trick-or-treating and this girl felt left out because she wasn't dressed as a princess and this girl did this thing. And it was just as frustrating as it can be because teenagers in general, it's just been really nice to recognize that even in building a unique family that's made in its own way, we're still so like so many other American families. And that's just been really, really special. And so I just, again, you know, I'm always writing, you know, and I'm sure the next book is being formulated some way, somehow. I'm so grateful for it, you know, and so as I start kind of writing these things out, I'm hoping that the lessons, the stories, the experiences continue to draw people together to say like, gosh, we're really more alike than we are different.
Well, in so much permission, I mean, just from, I've followed along with what you've been doing for a really long time. And then in reading Nothing is Missing, I got so many more stories and just like inspiration. And you are unique in that you seem to, when you want to do something that's super off the beaten path, you do it. And I want to know what you think that is about you. Were you born that way or did that develop over time?
I will say that I was born that way for sure. But it is also birthed of a naivete in a lot of ways.
How delightful.
How delightful, right? Like that I have not tried to fix. It's kind of like my obsession with cheese, like don't save me. You know what I mean? Like I don't, like even when I hear facts, oh, eating too much cheese, it's fine.
Yeah,
you know?
But you know, I can really find you data to support eating cheese. So I would be happy to offer that
science,
to
I
you.
Swear. There's science, I swear. Absolutely. But no, I've always been like this. You know, it's just kind of like things like adopting 3 kids at 28, you know, if I had known completely, you know, and I'm a God girl, I say that all the time, you know, but like, you know, as a God girl, sometimes I feel like you don't have a glimpse, you know, whatever your belief is, you don't have a glimpse necessarily into the full picture, because if you did, you might not do the things you need to do to realize the full picture. So at 28, of course I thought, sure, I can take in 3 kids, a 3-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 14. It'll be fine. I'll be like a big sister, just kind of help him do some stuff, do activities with the 3-year-old, bake cookies. It's fine. If I knew completely what it meant to parent and the fact that there is no version of halfway with children, that, I mean, depending on who you are, you know, there's no version of halfway, I would have run the other way, you know, and people hear that story and they're like, oh my gosh, what a person you are. And I was like, yes, I have the inclination of like, fix it, you know, like I'm a doer, but I am definitely a human, you know, and I was 28 and done. You know what I mean? Like I just really thought I could do it all and it would be fine. And
it was.
And it was.
But I imagine so much harder than you ever could have possibly imagined.
It still is hard. Yeah. I've got my 22-year-old the last 2 weeks have been, anyone who has multiple children understands this. You're very lucky if they're both okay at the same time. Like one of them's always having a meltdown or a celebration or something. And, you know, my 13-year-old has every bar mitzvah in the world happening right now. It's that season. And she's just busy. And plus navigating middle school and all that. Then my middle one is first serious boyfriend. But they've been together for 2 years. Okay. So now it's kind of so what are we doing? And it's like, you know.
She's 22.
And she's 22.
So that's like a serious age.
It is a serious age.
Right.
You know,
we're not
but
12.
We're not 12, right? And it's a real boyfriend, you know? So like as a mom, it's very like, what are we doing? The answer is nothing. You know what I mean? Like everything is fine.
Right, enjoy your life.
Just enjoy your life. Yeah. But also letting her do too much, you know, to like navigate that. You know what I mean? It's just 22. And then my 25-year-old, you know, she struggled with sobriety. So, you know, she's on a totally different trajectory, you know, and thankfully she's been sober now for a little over a year, but you know, she's on a different trajectory too. So it's like, I mean, just the last 3 weeks, I'm getting phone calls from all of them. I literally am sending my 25-year-old groceries yesterday. Just like,
it's a lot.
It's just a lot. And
also pregnant.
And this is the child that's behaving right now, barely.
You know, so being pregnant is, I found tricky. And babies are easier when they're in your womb.
Pocket children. I just come with me everywhere.
In the end, it's actually the easiest.
This is the easiest part. It's just
but
here.
But then also the hardest time. And there was a lot of relief once I gave birth with both girls. Even though it became harder physically.
Sure.
It was wild. Like all the pains I was feeling, the heartburn. It was
the heartburn.
Like I gave birth and then it was gone.
So everyone says that. All the moms say that. When I tell you,
it's a freaking miracle.
It's a miracle, and it's one. And also the fact that it's a uniform thing that every mom says is just like, again, that closeness that you feel with other women.
Oh my God.
Like when I tell you, there's a knowingness. Like when I go places and moms see that I'm pregnant, and I'm like rubbing my chest. They're just like, yeah, honey. I know, you know, they're like Carrie Tums. You know, like they all understand.
Yeah,
or
I just like lived on chewable magnesium.
Oh yes, and I was like, does this count as my calcium? Like I'm like going to be like calcium deficient after this, you know? Oh, cheese does help. That's true. Cheese does help. But, or like the other day I shared on social, I was like, hey, so every time I go to bed, they, you know, get kicking, you know? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, so I didn't know that was a thing, right? Yeah, I didn't know.
They just love to play.
They just love to play and all this. So I'm
night.
posting on social saying, and this is again, the cute, naive, and it's odd because it's like I'm 40s and it's my first go of it, but I already have kids, but I don't know this experience. So I'm sending messages. I'm like, hey, what's the solution for when you go to bed to get them to quiet down so that you can like go to sleep? I think I'm doing something wrong. Should I be like, you know, eating a different snack or laying on it? Is there a pillow I can buy? Every mama is chuckling in the DMs like, oh, honey, this is, and you're only 6 months in. This is just the beginning. Just wait. They were like, play the game of, is that a foot in my rib or is that an elbow? Yeah. Because that's what you're going to be doing. And I was like, oh, we all know this. Yeah. We all know this, you know?
But you don't, it's not like information you would just randomly bring up to women who aren't pregnant.
Oh.
Because you just, you know, and then also if women aren't going to have babies, it's just like not the most
it's
helpful
just
thing. How's it going? Are people sharing like
stuff
terrible birth stories with you? How are you protecting yourself during this time?
I appreciate that question. Yeah, I appreciate that question. So there are things that I'm learning, which again, being an older mom, and this is interesting. This is the first chat I've ever really had about this because so much of this is new, you know. But you know, being an older mom, some of the things that I'm really grateful for is a stronger sense of self. Yeah. So it's not like I'm impermeable. You know, I still have my hormonal, emotional reactions. Like when I found out about post-birth contractions, after labor contractions, I was like, is there an after labor epidural? Like, is there a conversation? Wait, it happens twice? Like, why don't they tell you this? Like,
but it's not, by that time, there's so many hormones in your body of joy and bliss that you kind of don't notice.
But can you imagine no one tells you this?
Yeah, there were a lot of things people didn't tell me that I learned out as I was giving birth.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh, and I mean, when I tell you the way I've been calling my doctor about things sometimes, and my doctor's like, I'm like, hey, so this thing's happening, and you know, if I wasn't pregnant, this would definitely be death. Like, I'm certain this is a sign of 911. And she's like, oh no, the diagnosis is pregnancy. So like, that has been a very interesting experience to hear. There's so much moms we just chalk it up. Like, we're like, we got this. And it's just, that's it. Part of the deal. But the thing that I think I've been the most surprised about, but I'm glad I have the adult fortitude against, is a lot of the judgments, you know, like when people, I didn't even know breastfeeding was like a contentious topic for a lot of people. I had no idea.
Controversial topic.
I had no idea.
People have a lot
of opinions and takes, and I mean,
much judgment.
Oh, so much judgment. I mean, I had like, and if you decide not to breastfeed or cannot breastfeed, and then you're bottle feeding, then it's like the type of bottle is an issue, you know, and then all these things. And when I tell you, it is so interesting to me because when I say it, like unguiltable. Like, I am just kind of, I'm like,
so awesome.
I'm totally unguiltable. Like, I literally will look at you kind of crazy face. Like, wait, so you're telling me about feeding my kid? Like, during a time where I am exhausted, recovering, you know, just 40. Everything hurts and it's never gonna not hurt now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going from delivery into perimenopause. I don't wanna hear it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's been interesting to see that there's a whole other world and dynamic. Like, with all the good of this unifying sisterhood I'm in, there's this whole other world that goes along with it too. So
I think that it is a mistake that our culture can make, that once you're pregnant, your body somehow becomes like public property and open for comment.
Once you're a woman, your body becomes public property. It's just it's a new way to talk about it that, you know, if you don't have children, you may not ever know about. And I made it all the way to 40 without knowing that. And I'm just like, bravo, women who had kids in their early 20s, early 30s, and have for 15 years had to live with that extra narrative on your head of, are you even parenting right? Like, I don't even know. I don't know what that is.
And what is right?
That's
right?
what I mean.
Like, I mean, even within my best girlfriends, who I love deeply and respect, and we have many shared values, but sometimes
totally different.
And I come back, when I feel like I'm not doing a good enough job, I come back to like, okay, my kids chose me. That's what I believe. Or they were, you know, or God chose me for them. But anyway, it feels destined. Yes. There was like a soul contract.
100%.
And so I'm like, they were, even if I am making a mistake, like, maybe they signed up for that as part of their soul journey. So, I mean that doesn't get us off the hook for doing the best we can.
We still have to do our best.
But I don't think guilt helps us be better moms.
Not at all. Guilt doesn't serve anyone. Shame doesn't serve anyone. And it's one of those things where I know that with my littles, I feel the same way. You know, like, there is a full circle moment, you know, about reaching this place at this stage of my life that I know that we are meant to be family. But I also am going to have a therapy budget and a college budget. Like, I'm not going to get it all right. And this world isn't going to help get everything right. And it just is what it is, you know? But yeah, no, I look at some of my friends, like, we have, for instance, in our house, we have a no sleepover policy and a no trampoline policy.
Okay.
Very, like, random, right? There are people who are like,
those
we
are
love
not
trampoline.
random. Those seem embedded with something important.
Right. Like, embedded will just, a lot of, we have a joke. I'm like, do we go to the hospital? No. Like, it's just like, so it's like, we're not jumping on trampolines. We're not breaking bones,
people
you know?
Who have the trampoline in their backyard are sending kids to
the hospital. It's like a total thing.
It's true.
But
it's a big
I also don't, it's a liability issue. And like, and I worked in insurance. Like, I've seen the claims, you know? Like, I just know, you know? It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those things where I don't judge people for, trampolines are so much fun. I've been to trampoline parks. Like, I get it, you know? It's just, we won't have one, you know? And so it's just like, it's interesting to me though that for some in this world, I'm brand new to me. Like, I had no idea. Some people are very passionate about dictating how they feel you should live, you know, around things that do not affect them. And that is like, just, I think that if I was younger, that would have impacted me a lot more. And I'm really grateful because like in my first book, you know, Nothing is Missing, that's what I talk about, is just spending so much of my time looking for what was missing, because people are very quick to point out, you're missing this, you're missing this, you're missing this. And then reaching that point at 36 where I said, okay, well, if everything's missing, what am I really gonna do? And then now being pregnant 4 or 5 years after that and saying, oh, well, if nothing's missing, then girl, you're fine. Like, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
So,
and when we can live our lives as though nothing is missing, then we can be really present to the abundance that already is.
And
which
you can
most of the time we
want.
miss out on.
Yes.
Like that feeling, because, and listen, our survival brain does constantly sort and sift for danger and threat. So we are wired that way as animals to be tracking for what is missing. what is the problem, and our, you know, our evolution has done that, and we can rewire ourselves
100%.
to not do that anymore habitually.
It takes work.
It does take a
takes
lot of
work.
work. So for you, what were some of the key things you did to shift from everything's missing, or not everything, but like this is missing, this is missing, this is missing, to nothing is missing, even in an environment that was maybe, you know, difficult
for sure.
with your girls, difficult in marriage or a job or whatever.
Absolutely.
Because like at any given time, no matter who we are, we all have problems, right? We all have an area that we want to grow in our lives. But how have you worked on that?
I think one of the things that was big for me and kind of unusual was personal development wasn't part of my home life, you know, and I think
Actually, I think that's really normal.
Is that pretty normal?
Yeah.
I don't know. In other countries, so I have friends, you know, that have pretty diverse backgrounds. Like in Australia, it's like very normal to have some degree of personal development.
Really?
Yeah, like if you tell people you're taking like a coaching class,
That's like normal?
That's not unusual.
I feel like in America,
In America, that's what I'm saying.
In the
I feel
United
like in the United
States,
States,
it's
kind of
really weird to be into
until
personal
you're
development.
in that world, and then you realize, oh, there's whole people who live like this. You know what I mean? So
I grew up in a personal development household, and I always felt like an alien.
Right.
So,
but
anyway.
also when you do, but that's what I mean is I didn't grow up like that. But once I realized, oh, this is as simple, just I guess kind of like growing up in a wellness household, right? Like for a lot of us who grow up and just eat, we don't realize that there are patterns around eating or tools around eating or, you know, education, nutrition, whatever. So in any case, not growing up in a personal development household, as I started embracing, you know, self-help is not, and also I think there's stigmas around self-help for a long time that have evolved. Yeah. So, I mean, I remember, you know, in the early, like mid to late 90s, self-help entering with a common lexicon, like through movies and television and being more present, but it still had a little bit of a stigma of it being like a woo-woo weird thing.
Yeah. Or like you're crazy.
Or like you're crazy, you know, versus just being, I'm trying to understand myself, you know, or I'm trying to like elevate and be the best version of myself. And so that wasn't something I grew up with, you know, partly I think by privilege, right? You know, because I'm the child of African immigrants, you know, and we didn't have what felt like the privilege. It felt like an indulgence to worry more about how you felt than what you needed, you know, because we lacked so much. And so the focus was on how can you do things to get an outcome. So that journey to getting to a place where I'm realizing that, you know, it's not so much that I'm complete, right? There's always work, but that everything I need is already around me, you know, in terms of the nothing is missing. It involves starting to step into that world and just step into that world through regular tools first, like therapy. That's a form of self-development. Yeah. I've been in therapy now for 12, 15 years, you know, regularly. And engaging in education around my mind and my body and my health for pleasure. Which is, I mean, a distinction that I don't think a lot of people make. When you engage in education around yourself for pleasure and not for fixing, it changes everything. And as a mom and as a wife and as a mentor, you know, we spend a lot of our time fixing. And we don't ever say like, oh, I just want to learn how to make a great healthy meal because it'd be fun.
Just for fun.
For fun.
And because it feels good in your body.
It feels good, but it's still education. It's still affirming a sense of worth and a value around who you are. And that is, it's good for you, you know? And so, you know, unfortunately, the thing that really drifted me towards doing it for pleasure, not for work, was post-divorce. You know, like I saw my marriage really starting to come to a conclusion. And I set out, you know, to say, look, I'm not even saying I want it to be over. I just need some time to restore myself. And, you know, my therapist asked me, and this is actually not in the book, my therapist asked me, do you have any hobbies? And I was thinking about getting a job at Starbucks, you know, because I really love making coffee and, you know, I get to talk to people because I love people. And she's like, that's not a hobby, that's a job, honey. That's a job.
An amazing response.
Yeah,
to the
she was like, that's a job. And I was like, no, but I don't need the money.
I'm gonna work at Starbucks
for
my hobby.
Right. I was like, I don't need the money, so that makes it a hobby because I can just do it for fun, right? And she's like, no, no. And that was when I really was like, do I understand the distinction of pleasure versus doing things for validation, worth, intent, purpose, pay, all that. And that was when I was like, I got to work on myself. And that changed everything.
Do you have any hobbies now?
Yes, I love to cook.
Yeah,
That's a
okay.
big one.
Beautiful.
I mean, I will get up and just try to like replicate a dish. Like I'm constantly working on refining. So like working on things like my knife cuts and, stuff like that. So it's a
Cool.
skill set. And then I garden, but it's the part that I'm working on with my therapist is, but my hobbies all have outcomes, right? So I'll like garden and I'll say, I'm gardening so I can have an all organic self-grown Thanksgiving.
Cool.
Things like that.
Like this year or someday?
I did that 2 years ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so like that's like a bit. So I grew my own sweet potatoes. I grew my own like everything except for like
Here
my
in
garlic.
LA?
No, not in LA.
You were
I did that in Georgia.
in Georgia,
Yeah, I did that
okay.
in Georgia. But like those are the types of things that wasn't 2 years ago. That was pandemic. But
Okay.
yeah,
That's
but
a
it's
very
like
pandemic-y
It's a very
sort of
pandemic.
thing.
Well, I've
I mean,
always
how
been a
wonderful,
gardener,
though.
but that was me like getting into it. So those types of hobbies. Like I really, I used to make my kids Halloween costumes. Like I like to sew. Like I'm very.
It's like very homegrown.
Oh, I'm very homegrown.
I'm really inspired right now.
I'm very homegrown. Like I was in like 4-H club. People
Cool.
don't know. I am your best friend in an apocalypse. Like
Wow.
I can
Noted.
noted. I will feed us. I will keep us entertained. I will be the seamstress.
You will handle the livestock.
I gotcha covered. I will make
and
bread. I'll
grow
take the
sweet
livestock.
potatoes.
I will mend the clothes. I gotcha. We will eat well.
What important life skills? I mean, really, one of my daughters is learning to sew right now, and I learned to sew, but it was the 80s.
Yep.
And like it was a
Everyone
different
did.
time. And I grew
Literally.
up in a small town in Maine.
Literally.
And like, it was different times.
Yep.
And so I'm so thrilled that she's learning this skill set.
Absolutely.
Like I think these skills
People in Maine are very industrious, though.
We are.
Like it's
We're a
it's
hardy folk.
They're hardy folk, and it's like one of my good friends is from Freeport, and
really?
Oh yeah, and like one of the things about
that's so unusual. I grew up 10 minutes from there.
Oh,
like Freeport and my hometown are the same.
oh, I went up there and I was like, nobody actually. It's too beautiful.
Yes.
Nobody actually lives up here.
know.
This is not a real
so
place.
beautiful.
Yeah, I was like, this is not real at all. Like. I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, Maine is like a secret. Like, everyone knows what Hawaii looks like, Everyone knows, like, these areas, like, and I was like, Maine is, they have a whole system. Don't come here. It's too beautiful. Like,
Well, the 9 months of terrible winter every year.
you guys are so hardy.
sends
You guys are so hardy. Are you kidding me?
It's so brutal. And then summer's so gorgeous.
It's
it erases
so gorgeous.
your memory.
Oh, and when I tell you the behavior is Mainers? Is
Mainers.
Mainers.
Yeah.
The behavior of Mainers is so laid back. It's like you guys are all like LA people, but like snow hardy. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh yeah, you want some clams? I'll be right back. And then you look around the corner and you're putting on rubbers, like, and I'm like, we could have Instacarted. And it's like, no, like I'm gonna walk out to this giant, gorgeous river that is my backyard to go get the clams to bring them in. And I'm like,
the fruits of the earth are right there for us.
but like you guys don't process normally. Like that's not regular. Or like I went during blueberry season.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's go for a walk. Okay. And we walk out and I'm like, oh, these bushes. Like, what's going on? There's all these bushes. And I'm like an outdoorsy girl. So I'm like, oh, it's blueberries sitting there. Yeah. And so and I'm like, you guys, it's not normal. Maynard's think it's not normal.
That's
like
really,
oh
really
my gosh.
funny.
But I also am like, it's just, but also the industrious part. So like stuff like, oh yeah, I just got some pine and I'm gonna make myself a credenza. A credenza. What?
Wait, have you seen the like blog and Instagram about my LL Bean boyfriend?
No, but that's also very appropriate.
Okay, it's very amazing. So it's like this whole comedic thing about like I'm your LL Bean boyfriend and I will like build you a table and then I will have sex with you on it.
It's real, but it's like a real thing. Like this is like how Mainers are.
Funny.
Like every Mainer I have ever met in my life has an amazing home that is filled with things that I'm like, where did you get this? Like vintage stores, whatever. They're like, oh no, I built that last week. It could probably use another coat of stain. Have you ever made one before? No. But I just had some soft pine around, so I just like what?
Figure it out.
It's just this like, and it's not that like automatically handy or a great cook. It's just there's this energy of not being daunted by just doing, you know. And
well, I think there's a beauty of the time when we grew up. Are you an '84 baby?
Oh, yeah, I'm an '84 baby.
Okay,
So
I'm
yes,
an
it's a
83.
very different time.
So
You get
like
it.
that like without all the tools and the whatever, like it's
You had to figure it out.
You just figure it out, and I think it slows us down in a nice way. And like I live in Miami, but I'm thinking about like how can I get my kids to somewhere
Yes.
where it's
Yes.
a little less everything accessible right now?
100%.
Because I think it does, like, I sound like an old lady, but I think it's character building.
I think it's character building and also brain development, right? Like critical thinking and processing. And, so like having a 13-year-old,
Yes.
that's a huge part of it with her. She still doesn't have a phone, still doesn't have social, still doesn't have internet.
I want to hear all about this. I am obsessed with this conversation. How have you managed this?
So
I bow.
Oh, thank you. So it helps. Pre-cooked children helps, right? So because they're adopted, they came in and I was like, hey, this is just how we live here.
Yeah.
So it is.
Yeah,
so like,
but when you grew it, that's going to be what you're going to say to this
same
one
thing,
too.
absolutely. Well, it'll be nice. Can say, well, this is what your sisters had to do. So that sort of thing.
This is how we do it.
This
in
is
our
how we do
house.
it. So she's the youngest one, but yeah, I mean, no one in our home got a phone before 16, and their first phone at 16 was basically a brick. It was just communication tool. Absolutely.
Whatever.
For my older ones, I think it was the old school Nokia brick.
The best.
It did nothing, But for our youngest, there are new phones now that don't have internet access.
Like the Gab phone.
So we use a Gab phone.
Okay.
Yeah, we use a Gab phone. So
so that she can be, if she's somewhere, she
can communicate, she can text, she can send
just
photos.
for safety,
yeah,
whatever.
but I mean, there really isn't anything else she needs to be doing on her phone. If there's something fun on social, we can share it with her.
Yeah, you can consume it together.
Absolutely, but it isn't something that she needs to have regular daily access to. So the fact that it's just like it is with parenting, it's a lot easier to not have to restrict it if you just never introduce it.
100%. You are just...
It's just so much easier. Just like
it's very nourishing to listen to.
Oh, absolutely. Like, and it feels old school, but it's also kind of like she has the rest of her life to do it. So even now, one of the things that I get into with her stepdad, is that we're both extroverts, and our daughter is not. She is not. She is tired of the people. She's like, I had 2 bar mitzvahs this weekend. Like, Mom, I shouldn't even have to go to school. I have seen these people enough. Like, that is how she is. So, meanwhile, we're here like, she doesn't have enough friends. She needs more social life. What about her friend groups? She's here all the time. All she wants to do is read. And then it's like, we remind ourselves, no, like let her, because later, right? Like she's got later. So when it comes to all the tech stuff, we're like, she's a lifetime to have tech ruin her. Really? She just doesn't need it now. And
it's inspiring that she's 13 and that you're in Los Angeles. So I tell myself a story that because I'm in a major city, that somehow like I'm not going to be able to protect my kids and that they'll be socially ostracized and won't be part of the group. Even though I'm still like, I've told them they're not getting phones until they're 25.
Yeah.
I
told my older ones, you're not going to get a phone. I'll back you up. Be like, oh yeah, my friend Nicole, she lives in LA, same rule. Like I am the mom. If you ever need to call someone to be like, oh yeah, it could be foolishness. Oh, I don't feed my kids bread. What? Your mom's not weird. Who eats bread? Like I will always back you up. I'm that friend. Put me on FaceTime. Auntie Nicole doesn't let her kids eat bread either. And they don't have bed sheets either. Like I'll always be the one to back up whatever the insanity is. But no, it's true. It's like, they don't need it in a major city outside of the basics, And then in terms of being ostracized, I mean, what I'm finding now is the education is trickling down, right? So she's in class and she's hearing about things like everybody's making fun of someone on Snapchat or they're talking about whatever. And she's like, it actually feels really good to be like, I don't even know about that.
Okay,
I don't even know about that.
I love that she's able to know that for herself. What a strong sense of self.
I mean, she's also weird. She's like very mature. The number one thing her teachers say about her is she's a serious child. Okay. And I was like, I don't know.
Amazing.
She's the adult in the house. Like this morning, she said to me, we woke up. It's I know that people might watch this whenever they watch it, but it's the day after the election day, which is 50% of America is cheering, 50% is devastated. Right?
Strange day.
It was strange day. So she wakes up and she's like, Mom, all that matters is that hope and patience prevails.
No. What?
She's 13. I was like, have you been drinking? Who are you?
Hello,
like, where'd you come from? Where are you from? Where did you, I was like, did you read that on a fortune cookie or whatever? And she's like, no, I just feel like we get really caught up in things being one way or another. And you always talk about being hopeful and then waiting. Yeah. And she was like, so if hope and patience prevails, we're fine, right? And I was like, uh-huh. And it was one of those moments I was like, oh, you're the adult. You're the adult, So, and I think all of that also comes from like, she didn't have social media to influence her. And it also is such a great reminder as someone who's a full circle personal development person, what is our baseline? Yeah. What is our baseline as people, as humans? Her baseline without any influence from social media, TV, the media, whatever, was there's an election happening. there wasn't anything I could do about it, right? Which technically we all vote, but what can we
You're
do
one person.
outside? Well, one person. So she went to bed and woke up and said the same factors that existed before I closed my eyes still exist today. That is where we should be, you know? And it was just, and I think that, you know, again, not having a phone really helps. Like her sense of self is not being developed externally. And that is, as long as I can protect that bubble for a little bit, you know? And then in terms of skill sets, like kids find stuff to get into. I have to make sure don't start fires. Like, you know what I mean? When she cooks, that's a thing. I have her cooking meals, following recipes. Like, but that's also, I think, being African too, like coming from an African household.
So great.
They're like, you are an adult. You need to grow.
Absolutely.
It's like an actual skill. So
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so practical. Like, I think that I was messaging with a girlfriend who has kids about the same age, and she was like, you know, we realize that like now, you know, because her kids are also 6 and 9, mine are 6 and 9. She's like, they can do everything for themselves.
Oh yeah.
Like for the most part.
For sure.
You know, and
especially with YouTube.
She was like, I realized I was just going to stop doing anything for them that they were capable of doing for themselves.
Sure.
And she said it's painful at first, but I will just leave the room.
Yeah.
And just empower them to do it themselves.
100%.
And it's like, because when we overhelp, when we overdo, and I think this is with our teams,
mentors,
with customers,
everyone,
with
mentorship,
children, with everything, when we overhelp, we say, I don't believe in you.
Yes. And we also cripple them for believing in themselves, you know, and that's like, we don't want that to happen. That's like defeats the purpose, you know? Yeah. With, my daughter's been doing her own laundry since she was 6, and we use stickers, you know, so she couldn't read, you know, like she was working on her reading.
Right.
So we would have stickers like move to the elephant when you need to dry, move it to, you know, and that would be like next to normal and all that. So she's like, okay, it has to go to elephant, has to go to star, you know, and that was how she figured it out. And she's been doing the dishes, you know, since she was probably like 7. And it's just, as moms, we have a lot going on, you know, and it's not that our kids are like workhorses per se, you know, but they do need to be able to function. And I think, and I'll say this transparently, and it makes you a little teary, probably hormones, you know, but because I had pre-cooked babies that also, we didn't adopt them until about 5 years in, you know, so I didn't know what would happen necessarily. Like, we've always had a great relationship with their mother, you know, which I talk about for the first time in this book, their bio mom. But I didn't know what could happen. You know, I didn't know if there'd be a day where she would just pull up and say, I want my kids, or, you know, I don't know. Even though we had paperwork and guardianship, you just never know. And so I did have to parent with the thought of, if they were to, it makes me so sad. If they were to not be with me, they have to be okay. Yeah. You know, which is very different, I think, from what I feel with this one, you know, and I think what a lot of moms feel is, you know, sometimes we're like, someone please come take these kids. You know what I mean? Like, any day, I don't have to be the one, you know, like any day, come get them. Who's the person who's coming to get them today?
It could be anyone.
Anyone. Please, kids for sale, come get them. You know, it's a different energy, you know, it's a different energy, you know, like, but now, you know, that was not how I felt. I felt very like, I have only so much time to download as much as I can to keep them ready, you know? So, I mean, I was teaching her how to make a sandwich because when I got her, she was 20 pounds underweight. Yeah. You know, I was teaching her how to do laundry because I knew that her parents may not be sober enough to be able to help her with. So it was like, I'm putting these things into her that ended up being life skills, you know, but with an urgency that I think not every parent may feel, you know, because I was like, I have to keep her alive, you know? And like, I have to help her feel like she can keep herself alive. And so, yeah, I mean.
But I think we could all really learn from that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in a completely different lens for many families, but like, how can I set my children up
to win
and to really, and so I'm curious how you do that with your kids with money.
Right.
I get this question a lot from people, like, how are you teaching your kids about money? And, you know, we're in the early days there. You're further along. So, yeah. Like,
and I've had all the ranges, right?
Lay it out. Like,
yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, it's very
them?
clear it's my money, not yours. So, right there, it's like, you guys have no money. You're starting at no money. That's the baseline. Yep. You've got nothing. So, since we're all on the same page there, what are you going to do to get some? Okay. You know? So, it's like, you know, mom is here to, you know, provide your comfort items, you know, to some extent. You're definitely your necessaries, but what you get is the version of what you get that you have to maintain. Yeah. So it helps that I didn't grow up wealthy, you know? So I still live that way. Like my kids have no idea how much money I actually have. Like they have a concept of it because we travel well and things like that. But for the most part, I'm like, oh, we're thrifting. We're going to Target. Mom still cooks, you know, like it's the thing that I think we do that feels the fanciest to me is I have cleaners, you know, who come in and do the deep clean, but we do our daily cleans, you know? So I think that that's a huge part of it is allowing your kids to still recognize if you think it's your money and not their money, like my cleaners don't do their rooms. Because the cleaners are here to help mom, you know, make sure that her life is easier.
You created a business.
I created a business
that allows for that.
And this is something I am delegating, you know, and I explain all of that to them.
Great.
You know,
Very
so like
clear.
you guys, if you have a business, I'll have the cleaners clean your room. You know what I mean? Like that makes sense. But if you're not doing that, then there's no reason. You have capacity, you know, so do something with your capacity. And then when it comes to on how to use money, like I absolutely talk to my kids about margins. I'm not fun, you know, charge the right price.
No, it's the best.
It's the best. I know. I'm like, I'm so unfun. We talk about not doing things for free.
Yes.
You know, that their labor is worth something also, which I think especially raising daughters is a really important lesson. I think a lot of women are expected to dedicate their labor in various areas around churches, charity, at volunteer business, even at work, you know, we're expected to do overtime without complaining about it because that's just like sweet, you know, and I'm not raising daughters like that. You deserve to get paid for your work, your knowledge, and your efforts so that way you can put your efforts where you want them to be put. So that's a huge part of it. And my kids are pretty, I mean, unfortunately, because we all come from poverty, we have our various traumas. So it's really important to also let them know, like, there's a phrase we say in our house a lot, this is what the money is for. So whenever we run into something that triggers our trauma but is a necessary expense, we always say, oh, Mom, right, this is what the money's for. Yes. Or I'll remind them, this is what the money's for. So my middle daughter, and I talk about it in the book a little bit, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And we knew that it would be complex, but we knew we had the means to afford whatever was required, but it doesn't shake that, you know, we paid out of pocket almost $250,000, you know, between her chemo, her meds, comfort items, you know, travel, all that. And every single day it was, this is what the money is for. This is what the money's for. I'll never forget when I was standing in the hospital and I got a call from the pharmacy that they were like, oh yeah, we're here to collect payment for, it was a injection that she has to get to like help her white blood cells, something like that with her bones during part of chemo. It wasn't chemo itself. It's like the stuff around chemo, you know?
People
and
don't know until
people
they're in it.
don't know until you're in it. It's just, there's so much. But also as a mom, I don't care. Take my blood, take my shoe, take my, I don't care, like sell my, like whatever, you know? So it's not a question, it's just sort of, okay, you know? But I get this call and they're like, yeah, it'll be $8,000 something, you know, and this is for like a week of the injections. And I was like, $8,000, you know, and I didn't quite understand. I was like, okay, but what is it after the deductible? Or what is it after like whatever, you know, what is the actual number? And they were like, that is what it is after. And I was like, oh, so that must mean each injection was probably like $20,000, which is wild. Conversation for another day. Yeah. But I will never forget the look. My daughter looked at me because she heard the number and literally this is what it's for. Yeah. This is what it's for. You know, and of course I had the privilege of being able to afford that without concern, but I also had that privilege because I earned it because of other choices that I've made prior to it. So that's a really empowering statement I tell my children all the time. Money is for our family, our health. It's for, there is joy as an element of it, you know, but it really is to take care, you know. It's to take care. So don't feel bad about that.
For when it really matters.
For when it matters, and don't feel bad about that.
So in terms of that, what I see a lot is folks not understanding what the money is for.
Right, sure.
And so then coming into earning whatever happens where now they have money they didn't before. And then it's gone.
Yes. Normal. Very normal. Yeah,
Right?
very
It's
normal.
just like, oh.
Or how much to use for
because
what.
we have no idea how much things cost.
Yeah.
And then it's really like, it's really easy to blow through what feels like a lot of money.
For sure.
And, you know, we see it all the time, you know, with celebrities and it's just like, it's a common story. So what are you passing along in terms of like stewardship and explaining like, okay, you make $100 and then what? Because like $100 is not $100.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things that I tell my kids is it's not really your money until it's in your bank account, right?
Okay.
So I think a lot of that behavior comes from pre-spending. So people walk around with imaginary shopping lists in their head. So the minute the money comes, it's like it's already spent, you know? And so I always tell my kids, like, you don't even really have this money yet, you know? So live your life based on what you do have. And if what you do have is $20, then yay, what a blessing that I got extra money, but this is what this is. This is what I have right now. Another thing is it's free to find out. That's a very common thing I always tell my kids is it is free to ask questions. It is free to talk to experts. It's free to find out. That is the benefit. We may not do free, but information is readily available. So ask the question, because the worst that someone will say is no, or they'll tell you, you know, how much it costs to get the answer, and you can budget that part of it. So, growing up poor, I didn't have access to a lot of rooms where money conversations were happening because that just wasn't part of my existence. But when I realized through personal development, growth and all that, that I can ask a billionaire, wait, so how much did you pay for that Rolex? Yeah. And they could easily say, I'm not telling you.
Right.
Totally fine. Or they could say, I paid this much. And then I can say, why? I will keep asking questions until you tell me to go away. It's free for me to find out. And most people will share, 100%. You know, and they'll tell you why. And when you understand the rationale, there's no greater gift than not assuming if someone's going to tell you exactly what. And that has really helped me with financial education. There are professionals and experts that will help you with everything. And as long as you're willing to engage. Like, so the guilt that I think a lot of us feel around, not knowing, like I'm supposed to know that. So many people have shame around money. Like they'll blow their money and they'll feel so bad. Yeah. I'm like, you didn't know, girl.
You didn't know. No one told you. Your parents didn't know. School didn't tell you. We have terrible modeling.
You didn't even know who to ask.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and then we're shamed for even asking. So it's this loop.
It's terrible. But it's like, no, like you can ask. Like you can ask. And if someone has an issue with it, that's not your problem, girl. Like go to the next person. Someone will tell you, you know? I'm the worst. I'm like, don't let me into the fancy boardroom because I'm telling all my friends. I'm like, this is what they're talking about. And here's how they made that money.
No, it's really important. You know, one of the biggest gifts I got early days was a few more successful entrepreneurial friends. They were like several years ahead of me who were just really transparent about numbers.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, because I didn't know.
Well, the two of us have been in this space for a while.
Yes, we have.
And through various storms, right? And I think that's something that I think a lot of people are starting to appreciate now. They're like, who's still here? Because I remember the gold rush, wildwildwest.com era of internet entrepreneurship, you know, but a lot of people don't realize that, like, you know, the people who are still here have been through recessions, inflations, pandemics, you know, and a lot of that has to do with our stewardship, you know, of what we have and our understanding around what's appropriate, you know, and we are the people to ask, you know, because we'll tell you that we're likely to, transparency is the only reason we're still here.
I always tell people,
know?
I actually had a friend last night. She's a new friend, and we just like talked all sorts of numbers. She's earlier in her business, and I was like, listen, I've been at this since 2009.
That's right. Same here, girl.
I'm going to talk to you about margins.
Yes.
I'm going to talk to you about, you know, you should take your profit off the top.
That's right. That's right.
Here's what it looks like.
Here's what it looks like.
I'm certainly
this
not
part's
the
hard.
best.
This part's not. Here's what you're making. Here's what you're not. Here's what you can expect. Here's what it looks like. And people who talk like that are the ones who weather the storm. It's the ones who are the, like, you know, laying out on a Lamborghini in Vegas saying, I have $1 bajillion and it just comes in. Like, I've heard phrases like ATM money, you know, and I'm like, this is not real life. Like, that is red flag number one that this is going to be short-lived, you know? And I'm like, no, I want to hear about how, you know, you manage to own your home, but you still shop at Target, you know, and you have cleaners that come twice a month, you know, but on the day-to-day, it's still you know, like you send out your laundry, but you put it away yourself. You know what I mean? Like the balance, like, you know, and you may have a nanny who helps but it's only during these hours so you can get work done. Like, and it's not like that's the right formula, but you're telling me that there's an intentional balance.
Well, and we do have to create it in alignment with our values.
With our values.
Which is exactly what you are sharing that you're passing along to your kids, which is exactly, you know, our money is meant to reflect our values.
Absolutely.
And that, I think, is the biggest piece of missing information. And everyone's values are going to be different.
Totally different.
right?
But it's intentionality.
It's intentionality.
You know,
yeah.
it's not just seeking what's missing. It's not just doing what the internet says.
That's the thing, is like the illusion that making more money is going to fill some kind of soul hole.
It doesn't.
Now, of course, listen, if you're food insecure, if you are housing insecure, making more money for sure makes a huge difference.
Holes. Different. I'll be the first one to say, I've been poor and I've been rich. Rich is better. Rich feels so good. Like, I prefer, money is great. Yeah. Like, I absolutely love it, would love to always have it. And it's just the greatest. Like, because it gives me more options, you know, and it gives me choices and flexibility and ease around not having to worry about certain things. But it doesn't absolve me from having to be responsible. Yeah. It doesn't absolve me from having to be intentional. It doesn't absolve me from having to have clarity around my values.
Well, and do you think that with the increase in income and stewardship, you actually have to increase the amount you're doing those things?
Well, and I have to be clear about them, because when you have a certain amount, you know, the more money, more problems, right? Like, the problems aren't necessarily external. A lot of times people hear that and they think, oh yeah, you have more people clamoring for you, or it's harder to make friends. Those can exist, but the problems are also deeply internal. You know, there were times where I was like, I don't feel great. I don't think I've ever said this out loud, but like, you know, prior to this is all second book type stuff, but, you know, coming out and looking back in hindsight, you know, I'm very aware that there were times where I would sit at home and say, I could go anywhere and I could buy anything and I am miserable. What does this mean? And being very confused, because growing up, I was always told that, like, the happy people lived somewhere else where joy existed and money was that barrier. And, you know, because we just so deeply didn't have, you know? And so I was like, oh, well, if I had all the food and all the stuff and limitless options, I would have joy, you know? Because what couldn't I do? I mean, I often would go places and be the wealthiest person in the room. You know, I could walk on Rodeo and buy whatever I wanted, you know, like it's just to be in that place and realize you're still so deeply unhappy. And not just unhappy, I was unhealthy, like physically too. And I was like, oh, I can't buy these things, you know? Like,
right, you can't buy joy. And you can't buy health.
You can't.
Well,
yeah, you can buy tools for health, but you know, I know tons of people who have tools for health, and like, I know people who own hyperbaric chambers, they just don't get in it. I've owned a Peloton, it was a hanger, you know what I mean? Like,
and also, if we're like deeply unhappy, that takes a toll.
It takes a toll. It's a physical toll. So it's just one of those things where I realized, oh wow, like how am I living? Like, what actually matters to me, you know? And right now, I have less in a lot of ways, you know. Financially, I'm still doing well, which I'm grateful for. And I need to, because these girls are, like, kids are just, I mean,
really pricey.
The math, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
No, but I don't know.
They find new things somehow.
It works out.
I mean, like my daughter wants to play tennis. I was like, it's an individual sport. Pick something where we share the tools.
It's
cheaper. But soccer.
Also, tennis comes with the outfits, and they're so cute.
And they're cute. And clubs and coaches. Like, we don't have to do this. You know, like, how good do you want to be?
At least it's not horseback riding. At least, because I'm like, girls,
out of the question. Never happening. You will never have a horse on my dime. It's not a thing.
Family.
It will never happen. Not on my dime. Absolutely not. I was like, you're going to sell a lot of lemonade, you know? But all that being said, like, you know, it's really nice to still be able to have like the means, and I've worked hard and I continue to work hard to do that, but I'm not defined by it. You know, it's not a, I could go anywhere and do anything and feel good. You know, it's not, my value is in how I can provide. You know, it's not, oh my gosh, my partner is pleased because I've retired them or I can take care of it. It's none of that. It is simply, are we good on the couch? Regularly, I'm like, if I had nothing, it would still be so good.
I know.
Or if I look back on my life, I'm like, if this was the end and this was the end of the ride, man, what a ride. Like, it's my 40th birthday today. And I look
today?
At it. Yes, today.
I know today is your birthday. I didn't realize today was your 40th.
40, yeah, I turned 40 today.
That makes sense given the year you were born.
Yes, I turned 40 today. And so
new decade starting right now. What time were you born? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. I will say though, like I have no idea, but I will say that turning 40, I feel like I've already been, if people ask me like when I was 38, how old 40? You know, like I've always been a rounder-upper, like it's fine.
Oh, that's
so
funny.
Like, yeah, it's just like whatever. So turning 40, I think one of the things that's really interesting is I'm in a reflective state, which is so different from where my brain was just years prior. And I look back and I'm just like, it's really been a good ride. Like, I mean, if anyone were to, especially now that my book came out, like I've left what I think my kids could use at least to get to where I am. And I'm like, you know, and that's not a challenge, or don't take me out. I'm good. I got stuff to do. You know what I mean?
You're just getting started.
Yeah, I was like, I have stuff to do, you know, but if I were to look at my life now, I don't think anyone would ever say that girl didn't do it all or try or, you know, try to be meaningful. And none of that has to do with money.
Yeah.
And that is like, it's really special. Also, when I was going through my divorce, one of the things that I said to my girls, because I was really worried, because I promised them that I would never leave, and I also promised them they'd have a good life. And there's so much of my driving factor around making sure I can provide. And, you know, these are girls who'd been going on private jets and, you know, going to villas. And I mean, I really was like, you guys are going to get everything that you deserve, you know. And I looked at them and I said, if I get divorced, you know, I don't know if we're going to be in a 1-bedroom apartment sharing a couch, like in extreme, because I know who I am, but I just wanted a context for them. And I was like, and would you guys be okay? You know, would you guys be okay if we didn't have all of this, you know, the big house and the cars and all that? And all my girls looked at me. And then my middle one said, would you still be there? And that was when I was like, oh, none of this ever mattered. Like, they don't care if we're in a box.
Oh.
You know, would you still be there? And I was like, oh, I'm never leaving. So if I'm never leaving, then, you know, it's fine. And that, you know, I have everything. Nothing's missing.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question. Here on your 40th birthday, kicking into a new decade, you know, some weeks away from giving birth to your fourth.
Bananas.
What is the message that's on your heart that you would want to tell this new life as you head into a new decade?
Oh my gosh. I was saying this yesterday to my husband that so much of my 20s and 30s felt like it was about doing what was right based on what I thought other people wanted or what I thought I should do based on the world. And this decade for me is about doing what's right because I just know it's what's right. And it may not be easy. It may still be hard, but I just want to do what's right, you know? And, you know, yesterday my absentee ballot didn't show for the election, and I was supposed to be voting in Georgia, you know? At the last minute, I got on a plane and flew 3,000 miles, 6 months pregnant, third trimester, to go vote. Wow. And, you know, and it took 8 minutes. And then I turned around and I came back by bedtime for my little one. And it was one of those things where I didn't know if it would make a difference. You know, I didn't know what the outcome would be, you know, but I knew it was right. I also knew it would be hard, but that's what I want my 40s to be. I want it to be a lot of me being unguiltable about doing what is hard because I know it's right. And that's very different for the past, but I think it'll mean everything for the future.
So good. Thank you for being here. This was just absolutely delightful.
Yeah, this is amazing. We could chat forever.
You are a gift.
Hang out.
Okay, so obviously everyone needs to get themselves a copy of Nothing is Missing. I read it right when it came out. And not only are you a wonderful writer, there are really important lessons in this book. It's also funny. You're a great storyteller. It's just wonderful. So get yourself a copy of Nothing is Missing, a memoir of living boldly. And then where else would you like people to come find you?
Oh my goodness, I'm all over the internet. Nicole Walters, and I don't.
And she's fun.
I don't even have admins. Just say hey. It'll be me.
I love that. How good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm getting at least one DM a week that says, when do the doors open for Relax Money again? I'm ready. Now, Relax Money is our signature neuroscience-backed methodology to help you get financially healthier. And we only open the doors one time a year for our live cohort. However, we are growing the wait list early. So when you get on the wait list, there are special bonuses, goodies, surprises, freebies, and you can get on there over at relaxedmoney.com/plenty.